Yo, what's happening, y'all boy, man? It's your boy Rick, man. It's LIB Media, man. I'm back again, man. So look, I wanna give my thoughts, my thoughts on this Jalen Hurts conversation that I've been hearing so much about. I've been hearing all these people from not only media people talking about is he a top 5 quarterback to people like Gilly and Cam being a separate argument online about it, and it's a lot going on. So I want to give my thoughts, like, and so I think the first thing is, as I said at the beginning of the video, all pro, right? I think when it comes to football, all pro is one of the best determining factors as far as how good a player is, because that takes the regular season, right? and and based on that in the regular season, right, you decide who was the best player, right? And so I say that to say, for the Jalen Hurts conversation, I believe it's separated really in two camps, right? You got the Peyton Manning camp and you got the Tom Brady camp, right? So when I say that, I'm old enough to remember when Peyton and Brady were in their prime. Peyton was winning all the awards, right? Brady was winning the Super Bowls. And then that's when it broke in half, where Peyton still retired with 2 Super Bowls. And that's the question I'll pan to y'all. Like, would you take all those awards Peyton got and the 2 Super Bowls, or would you rather have as much Super Bowls as Brady got? Right? That's the conundrum, right? But if you go from 98 to 2015, right? Because Brady came in the league in 2000. So you don't really and then you go to 2015, right? At that point in time, Brady only won. He was only All Pro twice, first team All Pro twice, and won the MVP twice. At that point, Peyton Manning had won all first team All Pro 7 times, right, and won the MVP 5 times, right. The Pro Bowls, they pretty much was making the Pro Bowl every year, so that wasn't really nothing to really worry about, right. And then and they both won Offensive Player of the Year twice, right. And so as you most of those seasons correlate. Like, you have the 07 season for Brady, where he was All Pro and MVP, and then in Peyton you have certain seasons. I know he had the one in Denver, which is 2013. I remember that season, but I think he won MVP in 2003, 2004. That season he won, and so long story short, it's broken up into two camps, right? The one camp is that Brady wins the games when they matter. That's the one camp. The second camp you got is Peyton Manning was just a better overall player, and Brady had a better team, and he had a better coach, and X, Y, and Z, and blah, 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 blah. That's the two camps, right? So, I am a little bit in the middle, because I'm a person where context just matters all together. If I felt like the Colts had a team that could win and they didn't win, then you kind of put that onus on Peyton. But I'm old enough to also remember Brady's first 3 Super Bowls. Brady wasn't this great player, right? Brady wasn't really making no awards or anything those first kind of couple of years. The first Super Bowl years, he wasn't really putting up the numbers and X, Y, and Z. And so that's what brings us right to Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts currently right now is not put like they won the Super Bowl, but his numbers this year was very pedestrian, right? 12-3, okay. Only 2,900 passing yards, only 18 passing touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. So the interceptions is great, right? He was second team All Pro one time, right? Just second team, not first team All Pro, and was a Pro Bowler twice, right? And that second team All Pro year was They went 14-1. Philadelphia, everybody thought they was going to win the Super Bowl. They got to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Chiefs. And so this is how I kind of break it down in my mind. Because yes, every good quarterback has to have good players to be a good player themselves. You need wide receivers, you need running backs, you definitely need the O-line. The game stops and finishes in the trenches. I always believed that. I was raised on that, and I believe that till this day. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. Why? Because they won the trenches. Simply as that. And that's why they beat up on my Washington Commanders, because we couldn't win in the trenches. Either way, so do I give Jalen Hurts do I give Jalen Hurts credit for winning the Super Bowl? Yes, he played pretty big in the playoff games. He made throws against us, definitely, and throws that were needed against the Chiefs to win that game, to establish himself. Yes, but then you don't just you don't just then disregard the accolades as well, right? When you have other players that are like the Lamars, the Joe Burrows, they're racking up the accolades part of it. And even Joe Burrow, I think, has never been first team All-Pro because of how great Lamar and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and how great they've all been playing. The flip side of that, though, is when you look at his individual numbers, you say, and if you compare him against most other seasons, you're like, in this, put this in 2014, I'm just making up a year, you'd be like, these numbers would win you the MVP, right? They didn't make the playoffs, X, Y, and Z. We know that their defense was terrible, whatever the case may be. So I think this conversation really comes down to the two camps. Like, are you a Brady camp where winning matters more, and if we're winning games, this quarterback is really good, which I don't believe, and I think that's a relatively new thing for all of y'all older football fans. Y'all let me know, but I feel like that's a relatively new thing where it's like, oh, this quarterback wins, so he's the quarterback, because clearly we've seen quarterbacks win Super Bowls who aren't Trent Dilfer. You know what I mean? You have quarterbacks who won the Super Bowl who you say to yourself, okay, this is just really a good team around them. Like, I've never been a big Troy Aikman fan. I never thought he was that good, but that Dallas team, those Dallas teams, plural, were just really good around him, right? But then you have teams that win the Super Bowl when you say the quarterback was the real reason, right? And Joe Montana was another example who had a really, really good team around him, but also he was really, really good. Now, he also had really good weapons, and he had a great running back, and they also had a really, really good defense. But when you look at Joe Montana's stats, though, the stats that he was putting up in the regular season and the stats he put up in the playoffs, when you look at the stats, you're like, okay, he was a huge part of the winning themselves. Brady has had years where he was the engine and why they were winning. Then he has had years where you got 7 Hall of Famers on defense, right? So you have to add the context into it. Jalen Hurts, is he a top 5 quarterback right now? I probably wait and say so. Is he a quarterback you can win a Super Bowl with? Is he a quarterback you would like to have? He's going to protect the ball. He's going to do all the right things. Of course, is he a great leader? Yes. And so if you can put him on a team that is built like that, right, you're going to be okay. Like, he has a play that only he can run, that they run in Philadelphia, the tush push, and it works for him because of his size and his stature. And so that also works. So I think for me, this conversation has gotten out of control because people don't want to bring in all of the context. Just add the context to the conversation, and then you will land where you want to land. If you are a primarily wins guy and you say he's top 5, I have no problem with that. If you are primarily putting up numbers guy, right? You're in the Peyton Manning camp, and you say he's not top 5, I have no problem with that. I sit somewhere in the middle because the objective of the sport is to win the game. Right? You play to win the game. Y'all know the quote, right? But also, I don't believe you should take credit away from other players to just give it to the quarterback because you won the game, right? We know winning is only a quarterback stat, right? You don't get to be a defensive end and 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 have a 70% winning percentage, and people be like, look at him, he won 70% of the games. No, if you're a defensive end, they will say, how many sacks do you have, right? So I just say you add the context in the game and you loop everybody in. I think it should be a middle ground of the Peyton and Brady camp, which would be kind of like the Patrick Mahomes camp. He had the stats and won the games, right? It's kind of like that Michael Jordan argument where, one camp is like, oh, this person got the rings. Oh, this person got the stats. Well, Jordan came in the NBA and he had both. He was winning the scoring title and winning the NBA championship. So it was both there, sat on the platter for you. You can eat it up. So I think Jalen Hurts, he is missing those stats, right? And we know he isn't that type of player. And the Eagles have adjusted to that. And they're a really good team. And I think don't just have the conversation and just be like, well, look how much games he won. Right. Look at it. We won the Super Bowl. Okay, cool. But then don't just be like, well, he ain't even threw for 3,000 yards, right? Because it's context, right? They had a 2,000 yard rusher on their team, right? I would like for somebody to go back through history and look at all the 2,000 yard rushers to see how much yards their quarterback threw for, unless it's the greatest show on turf or something like. And even then, Marshall Faulk didn't have 2,000 rushing yards. He had a lot of rushing yards, but the greatest show on turf was like why I got the name. You know how much offensive yards they were putting up. So I just think it's a nuanced conversation. Me personally, I don't have him. I have him in the top 10. I don't think he's top 5 because I think the top 5 guys have separated themselves with winning and accolades. No, have they won the Super Bowl? No, but I think winning and accolades, Patrick Mahomes has won the Super Bowl, but winning and accolades has separated them, right? Because I'm doing a mixture of both. But if Jalen Hurts retires and he got 4 or 5 Super Bowls and somebody else got 0, then it's a different conversation, right? Because then he's created a gap on the other end, right? On the other end of on the other extreme of the line, right? You got the 2 extremes, right? And so then you got to kind of have that full conversation. But I want to know what y'all think. This has been a conversation that's been getting too much buzz, in my opinion. I think it ain't that deep. When because Patrick Mahomes been winning Super Bowls, we got to see when the next guy wins the Super Bowl if they try to do that too. I was already a Matthew Stafford guy, but a bunch of people tried to bump him up after he won the Super Bowl. I was like, Matthew Stafford was already good in Detroit. Detroit was just a bad team. That's a perfect example. Detroit was a bad team, but Matthew Stafford was already good. I used to argue with my brother all the time, like, bro, Matthew Stafford is good. He's good. He get traded to the Rams, they win the Super Bowl. Then he's like, oh, well, I'll give him credit. Now I'm like, see, that I don't like that. He was already a good player. He just wasn't in a situation that could win. But either way, man, y'all like, comment, subscribe. This has been your boy Rick, man. Y'all boys tune in. Y'all let me know if I'm missing anything y'all want me to touch on. And I'm out of here, man. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace.